Okay, so automation in the clouds. I already did introductions, so let's do that quickly. Let me know if I'm cutting in and out. I'll stop a little bit, we'll get my internet back up to speed. So I'm a senior customer success advocate at Adaptavist. Here's my LinkedIn. 3 things you should know about me. I'm coming from the gaming industry. I used to be in QA, so I started as a tester, went into administrating the Atlassian stack for the testing community, and then became an admin at a much higher scale at Ubisoft, and then moved on to a consultancy role. I studied theater and drama. That was my calling. I wanted to be an actor, and then someone said, "You're not that good," and I said, "Okay." So moved on to IT and computer sciences, and I've been in the Atlassian space for about 7 years now. As you guys already know, Phil Fox is also joining me. Also one of my fellow principal customer success advocate. He'll be helping me throughout the presentation, insulting me in private on Slack, and sending some chat messages to you all. So today we're going to be talking about automation in Atlassian, automation on premise, and then we'll move on to what it looks like in the cloud and some of this between Scriptrunner versions. And I've also added a little bit about Autoblocks because I heard a lot of people talking about integrations and how to integrate systems together. So I'll be talking briefly about that as well. So we'll have a presentation up front. I'll do a little live demo, which can move into Q&A or whatever it needs to be at that point, depending on the time left. And so that's kind of the structure for today. Let's start with a quick overview of an automation in the Atlassian ecosystem. You know, we've all kind of seen this picture used in every automation presentations, I feel like, so I had to put it in. You remember the old ways of doing things, right? We'd waste a lot of time doing manual things, simple things, repetitive and boring things. And automation kind of was this idea of doing things more efficiently. So as we all know, automation, the kind of first industry that was revolutionized by automation was automobile. And it's now kind of integral part of work, right? Of how everybody work and every organization works. We automate things to make sure that people are giving attention to what brings value instead of wasting times on tasks that don't, right? I love this quote from Rudd. Let's make sure that we're not spending time or more time setting something up than actually is needed, right? Keep work interesting and creative. That's what automation brings to the table with the Atlassian ecosystem. So it's been automating, I believe, since 2007 inside of Jira. We've been doing automations. It has now grown to all major products. So all of the Atlassian products can now be automated, and it is now an integral part of the Atlassian ecosystem, the marketplace. If you look for usually the top rated apps, they're automation apps. People need to automate workflows, but also their instances and the way that comments are added. And if you have JSM, the way that you interact with customers, there's a lot of automation under the hood of what is a very flexible tool that we all know, Jira, we all know and love. So there are different types of automations within Jira, and I'll be using Jira a lot today, just because it's kind of the main source of well, automation for most people. There's a lot to be done with macros and Confluence. There's a lot to be done with builds and Bamboo, and there's a lot to be done with repos and Bitbucket. But we'll focus on Jira today. But if you have any questions on anything other than Jira, please feel free to ask throughout the presentation. By the way, I have this rule now that we're on Zoom and everything. It's kind of weird. People don't know if they should interrupt me or not. And this is like, I'm very open to questions. Just jump off mute and ask me whatever you want to ask me. I don't really get sidetracked, or I do because I talk too much, not because people ask me questions. So I'll try to stay focused, but feel free to ask me anything. So let's talk about the different types of automations, right? First of all, there's the instance-wide automations. I'm thinking of listeners that listen for events that are triggered either by creating issues, creating boards, creating projects, or deleting them as well. They all trigger events. And so these can reach multiple events independent of workflows. You have modifying the look and feel of the application. I'm thinking of script fragments, macros, things that are going to change inherently the page or the issue that you're looking at. There's also kind of the integrations and the announcement banners that used to be the trick, right? We used to thorough like HTML, CSS, and the announcement banner. It's kind of part of all that. And of course, we usually use these to implement governance over the instance, things that we want standardized across projects and issues. So they're not, they're independent of projects. The most widely and commonly used automation is within workflow. So we have a lot of workflow specific automation. They're usually your entry point to automation. People just say, hey, when I do this transition, I'd love for this thing to happen or that thing to trigger. So that's usually what we see, but there are multiple ways to implement them, but they're very the most straightforward automations out there. Then there's the one-time automation. So I'm thinking of console, I'm thinking of bulk scripts, things that we want to run one time or on cron jobs, things that we set up and they just run once a month or whatever. These are usually automations that are very fun to play around with, to be honest. This is how I test my automation all the time, test them in console most of the time, and then I throw them in workflows or listeners or whatever. So that's kind of part of what Scriptrunner does. So let's look a little bit of on-premise, right? We know that automation is important. In order to compare them between cloud and on-prem, I think we should kind of discuss how it's going to impact in the future. So let's start with what we know so far and what it looks like on-premise, right? The actual value of on-prem that we get that we don't get from cloud is that the app is actually installed on your instance. This means that by being installed, we have access to your database, we have access to the Java that runs the code, we have access to the Jira API directly, and we have access to the HTML and CSS that's building the UI of Jira. So that's going to be kind of changing the way that we interact for sure. We can run as many kind of automations as we want, right? When we use an on-premise application, there's no limit to anything because we're not necessarily impacting our instance. Now, I say that with a caveat. Of course, we all know like infinite loops and stuff like that can happen and will absolutely crash your instance. I've done it more than once. Of course, all of it in tests never happened in production. I would never do that. So that would be, crazy to test something in production. But definitely a plus on premise. You can create REST endpoints, right? So in the on-premise version, since we have access to the underlying API, we can actually create REST endpoints, modify them, do what we want with endpoints. These are and some stuff that we're used to. You can modify the interface. Since we have access to your HTML and CSS in the underlying UI, we can now inject code within the UI, adding buttons, adding text, adding things like that maybe we can't do in the cloud. And we'll show you, we have some ways around it, but not a lot. And of course, there's, you can build like dynamic interactions. So I'm thinking of behaviors, things that will change based on other things live inside of your system as you're doing things. I know a lot of people love behaviors. They're very important. We'll talk a bit more about them when we get to cloud and why they're not implemented yet, and maybe they will be. So as we all know, and as Bob Dylan famously said, this is all great stuff, but the times they are changing. And oh no, that was like I missed the animation. There it is. That times they are changing, and we're now moving to SaaS and cloud, and that's what people are now going to be on board on. So as maybe you know or you don't know, and I'm sorry if I'm announcing this to you now. But server is going to be sunset in 2024, and therefore we need to either stay on premise with a data center instance, but a lot of our customers, organizations are going to be moving towards the cloud, and that's what I mean by the times they are changing. So when we started building Scriptrunner for Jira Cloud, we're thinking of how do we take advantage of the flexibility, scalability that cloud provides us while keeping kind of the same functionalities that people are accustomed to on server or data center. And the main difference is how we can build the apps for the two environments. So for on-premise and cloud. As I mentioned before, we have access to the underlying platform when we work on-premise. It's completely different to the reality of cloud. So let's think about owning versus renting. Today is moving day in Canada, or Quebec, where I am situated in Montreal. So that means the 1st of July is, first of all, Canada Day. So happy birthday, Canada. But it's also the day where all of us in Montreal and Quebec move. There's a law that says that you needed in the past, now it's not there anymore, that said that every single, I don't know how to say it in English, or I don't know how Germany you call them, but tenants, your tenant contract needed to end by July 1st. And so you needed to find a new place or renew your contract every year on July 1st. And so everybody that's renting today is like, I'm seeing moving trucks just all day passing by the window. And so when you're renting a place, you have certain things that you can do and certain things that you can't do. And think of SaaS versus, and I'm doing Atlassian Cloud versus on-premise as owning a house and renting a house. When you're owning a house, again, you get access. You want to change the pipes, you go ahead. You want to change this wall, move it over there, go ahead. Install air conditioning, yeah, no problem. You can do that. You want to change the roof? Yep. That's all yours. It's a burden, right? It's also things that you got to fix now. So this thing is leaking. So now I have to pay to fix that leak. I have to make sure that I pay my taxes. I have to, all these things add up. So that's what happens when you're a homeowner. When you're renting, it's a little different. You do pay a premium, but you don't have to worry about the taxes. You don't have to worry about the leaking pipes anymore. You don't have to worry about the broken window anymore. You have someone that owns the place that fix it for you. Okay, so you pay a premium to get ease of mind. But that also means that you don't get to change the wall that you want to change. You get to paint it, so you can paint the wall. But if you want to move it, it's not as easy as you want it to. You want to change the whole, I don't know, the whole layout of the place. You want to change the bathroom. You can't do that necessarily. Now, I know a lot of owners that would say, if you want to pay for it, please do it. But technically, that's not part of your contract. You're not supposed to do these things. And that's how automation works, or how apps work on cloud. We have to deal with the fact that you're not owning the place anymore. We deal with Atlassian. So it's kind of a three-legged thing where we have what Adaptavist is doing, and you have what Atlassian is doing and what the customer has. And so we have to all work together to have an app that works for you. So instead of using the engine behind Atlassian, right? Think of the managers, the stuff that you know and love about Scriptrunner. We now have to act or use what Atlassian is exposed via the API. So as you know, or you may not know, APIs are basically like mailing system. They're information brokers. So if you ask for something specific, I send a request, the recipient will get the letter, whatever. They'll verify that I can get that information if I have the right credentials or whatever. And then they'll say, okay, yeah, you have the credentials to ask for this issue key. So let me send the issue key, and then they send it back and you receive it. If you want to add something, you send it in a box, you post it, and the recipient will get the box, say, hey, do you have the credentials to post things? Yes, you do. All right, let's unpack it. You want to modify this comment? No problem, I'll modify it for you. And they send back a letter saying everything was modified. That's the idea behind an API. Yeah, if you want to see how it looks, I'll be doing that very, very quickly at the end of this when we get into the live demo. But these are kind of the differences that you're going to get with on-prem and cloud, right? When we do automations. Again, on-premise, we've already talked through. Cloud automations, you have limited executions. The reasons why is an API, like I said, there's someone kind of handling that request, right? There's someone opening and opening boxes and opening letters. In order to not strain the system, we have to limit the amount of executions that you can have. So for example, we do 60 a minute. That's the number of execution of code that you can have in a minute. There are no REST endpoint creations because we can't create a REST endpoint in the underlying app because we don't have access to the app. Atlassian owns the stack and they own the DB and everything. So we can't do that unless they expose it to us. There's a static interface. We do have fragments online. they're HTML that we can throw in, they're HTML windows. So you could throw in a Google search bar if you wanted to in there or something like that. But there's limited interface things that we can do because, again, we don't have access to the HTML, CSS direct. There's also limited interactions. So talking about behaviors a little bit, we can't dynamically modify things since we don't have access to the not only the underlying HTML, CSS, but we also can't interact quickly with the API. We have to send requests, send it back, and then modify the form. It's trickier. But I don't know if I have a slide for that. So yeah, no, I don't. So let me go back to that. But I just wanted to let you guys know that Atlassian is working on enabling us right now to do behaviors. So if that is one of the major blockers for you to move to cloud, as we've seen, our support, ooh, my voice went. Our support has gotten a lot of requests for behaviors in cloud, and we're aware of that. Atlassian's aware of that, and it's been a blocker for a couple of customers that can't move to cloud unless behaviors are implemented. So just know that they're going to be there at some point. We're working on the API or on Atlassian side and on our side, on Adaptavist side, on how we're going to make it all work. But behaviors are coming to cloud soon-ish. Not talking 3 years, smaller than that. I can't give you a date yet. So let's talk about some of the tools that are out there. Automations for Jira has been like kind of one of a classic automation tool that's been used for the Jira on-premise, and it's been recently bought out by Atlassian. So what's awesome is that it's now bundled into your premium subscription. So if you're looking to do automations inside of cloud, this is available to you if you have premium as an, I think there's a high limit of like 5,000 executions per month or something close to that. Please look online. Don't take what I say as the exact numbers, but there's probably documentation online on that. So there, sorry, I just forgot to have all that. So it's integrated automations tied to your cloud tier. So if you have standard, you do get a limited amount on a project specific that you can use. And it's, again, it's based on your tier for the executions, number of executions and all that. So if you're just looking for light automations, that's already a solution for you specifically, or especially if you're on automation. But there are other tools out there that can help you, right? You have PowerScript workflow automation, you have JMWE, JSU, that can all empower your workflows and to work in better ways. And of course, I have to talk about it. We have Scriptrunner for Jira Cloud and Autoblocks that can help you automate in the cloud. So I see that I'm close to the 20-minute mark, which gives me 25 to go for the Q&A and the live demo portion of this. I'll talk a bit more about Autoblocks. I know it's kind of thrown in there and it's not a classic tool, but I heard a lot of people talking about integrations, and that's what Autoblocks does very, very well, and also works well with distributed systems. And also if you're living in a hybrid world, meaning that you have an on-premise instance and you have cloud instances, it all works really well together. So Autoblocks is really like an extension or the father figure for Scriptrunner for Jira Cloud, I guess, meaning that it does a lot more outside, but it's also an automation tool. So are you guys good? I see there's a lot in chat. Phil, did you throw some insults, or you actually answered questions this time?
I thought I'd break the habit of a lifetime and answer some questions and fill the bits in that you didn't remember.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. See, lovely. Thank you. All right. Any questions before I jump into the live demo? Also, again, this is a demo. It's Q&A. It's all going to be bundled into one thing that we can just talk. Good. All right, perfect. Now it's going to close down. Y'all are seeing my screen. It's great. That's what I want. Can you see workflows inside of Jira software?
Yes.
Yes. All right, perfect. Thank you. So let me talk really quickly around our browse section of Scriptrunner. I don't know if you've used it, but it's really, really good. It's in cloud and it's on premise, but we now have a way for you to see all your scripts depending on what they do. I won't spend too much time here because this is a cloud presentation, but show you really quickly the script that I use. So what I'm going to do is I'm because I'm stressed for time, and also automation and development kind of being what it is, I don't like to code live if I don't have to. I try to avoid it, to be honest. And it's not because I don't want to show you guys, it's because there's a lot of potential for mistakes. So let me just show you what my post function script does. So when I was 10, I realized that, create a draft, please. I realized that I could see 13 and over movies with my dad. And the first movie I ever saw that I thought I would never get to see in theaters because I was 10 at the time was The Matrix. And I saw The Matrix, I loved The Matrix. I still think it's a great movie. And so because of that, I'm going to show you the script I built that assigns a ship to any Matrix soldier that has a captain. So that's what I built. Very useful. I know people were looking for great use cases. So if you're working for the Matrix Army or whatever they're called, you got a use case right there. Let me just find, it's in progress. Sorry, my script. Oh, I put it in create. See, live demos. This happens all the time. Okay, let's go to do. Let's go my create. So script, okay. So this script that I built right here is your classic on-premise script. It uses the managers, you know them, you've used them before. I use the hover map to do my work. So just so you know, basically you select, okay, it assigns the, I believe it assigns the, oh wait, it assigns the hovercraft. Okay, perfect. So you select the captain, it gives me the, what the value is. So I use the key as the captain. The value is the ship that they are on. So Morpheus on the Nebuchadnezzar, which is the infamous Neo ship. Logos, the Mjolnir, Osiris are all ships. The Matrix, I research. And you can see you use your classic custom field managers, use the issue, you get the custom field object by name. We throw it in the hover map just to make sure that we get the right hovercraft, option ID. This is all, oh, and I see my connection's unstable. Did I break up? I'm breaking up.
I think it was okay. I could follow the entire time.
Okay, well, I'm good. I'm still good. Everything fine?
Yeah, keep going.
Keep going with your matrix thingy. Yeah, I know. But I just want to show you guys, this is very classic. I use the validation results, so the validate update, and I use the update after that on the issue service to update my issue. This classic script, if you want to see more of that, please feel free to look at the library. So if you don't know about the library, so you go into library.adaptavist.com. I'm just going to show it really quickly. If you're looking for scripts that do things and you don't know where, this is brilliant, right? So you could write update custom field in the research, and you're going to get a bunch of answers. So you can then click on it, and you'll have your server code right there. They're all built for high reusability. So they're actually quite simple to grab. And then we have like comments that tell you, please add the name of the custom field, for example. So you can go in and look that up if you want more examples of on-premise scripts. And there are cloud scripts, by the way. This one doesn't, but some of them have cloud scripts as well if you're getting started. It's a really good point of reference. So anyways, that's what I wanted to show you guys. This is your classic workflow. Now let's jump into cloud, okay? Again, the browse Scriptrunner thing. So I'm in my workflows. These are all the workflows I have on my instance. So if I go into edit here, and there's a nice name here, just wanted to show you that you can actually name them so you can funnel through them. And this is what I get when I go on cloud. Is the exact same function, all right? I select a captain, I select, and it automatically updates my ship that I'm assigned to. So as you can see, where it gets interesting is where I get information, where I set information, okay? So when you get, this is a request, this is an API request, okay? So if I do a get, what I have to do is I have to do a custom field return equals get. And when you do get, we automatically fill in all the important stuff for the request. All you have to do is specify which API request you're trying to do. So in this one, we're trying to do a field API request. So what that will do is I request all the custom fields that are assigned on this, that are in my instance. And then using that, I select, using the name of the custom field, I select which field I want to use. And when I have that, I can return the ID of the field, which is at the end of the day what I'm looking for. And using the ID of the field, I can now reference it. What this will give you is it'll send you basically a JSON file. And what a JSON file is it's a data structure type, where think of it like XML or whatever, it's a hierarchy. So you have the hierarchy of custom fields and things like that. And then the set is it's a put. So you have get information and put information. So now that I have the ID of the fields that I'm trying to change, I can inject using the issue this is the issue key, and using the custom field ID here, the value, I can now inject information inside of the issue. So instead of using manager, I'm now using API REST calls. As you can see, what I did here is I've actually created functions that set value. And I've kind of created a library of these like functions on my own. And using those libraries, I can easily just return the values I'm looking for, and I can actually copy and paste them. So I'm trying to build it so that it's highly reusable. It's not there yet, but it'll be there soon. But that's kind of what it does. So if I'm looking for a custom field ID, I can just grab this function and reuse it as much as I want. This will always return to me the ID of whatever field I'm looking for. This will always set a value of a field if I have the issue key, I have the custom field I'm trying to set, and the value I'm trying to set. As long as I have these things, I can do that and reuse that as many times as I want by just copy and pasting that. So I highly recommend you do that, since we're not using managers anymore. Building your own kind of library is going to help you a lot when you navigate all this. If I go into this console, so now we're going to be coding live, which means, all bets are off. As you can see, there's a lot of examples here. One of the ideas that we had back with the library was to inject some of these codes that we have inside of our product, so that when you click on any of these, it actually gives you a fully working code. And what you can do is you can try to mix and match all these different things to create what you're trying to create with copy and pasting. That's how I learned Scriptrunner for Jira Cloud, by just playing around with these examples. So if I use the update issue summary, for example, I have to give it the issue key, and I have to give it the new summary. So if I do that and I put the information, so I'll need the issue key that I've asked here, and I put in the new summary, which I've asked for here, then it asks for the results. If it's a successful or a non-successful, it'll log it in the logs. But to show you guys what it returns, let me trying to get an individual issue from the script console, for example. So I need to put in the issue key. So we're going to put in an issue key here. Let me just make sure I have one in like TP project. So we're live. Again, guys, feel free to cut me off, ask me questions, whatever. So we're going to use TP2, for example. Oh, it flags the issue. That's not what I want. So let's do get issue fields. Perfect. That's what I want. Okay. Do that. So if I run this, now we're waiting. Told you I could sing. Okay. This is the JSON file I was talking about. Okay. This is all the information that is inside of this issue. Now, if I want to get to any of these, I have to specify the key that I'm looking for, and it'll get me the answer for it. So these are all null fields. So that means that these custom fields exist, and they are part of this issue. So they're on the screens and the edit screens probably, but I can't there's no value in it. So I could inject value in them if I wanted to, but I don't have any. And that's pretty much what it is. JSON kind of format and what it looks like. And then if I go into priority, I can say priority.self, and this will give me this, which will be the actual link to get to the priority, for example, that has been set at. So that's kind of what it looks like on the back end of a JSON. So I just wanted to show you that really quickly. So these are the differences. As you know, like I said, there are some things that are going to be missing inside of Jira Cloud, meaning that there's some things that you can't do in Jira Cloud that you can usually do in on-premise. As you can see right now, there's no behaviors in there. The script fragments is a little bit limited. Like I said, it's an HTML window basically. So you can create one, it'll inject like Google or whatever you're trying to inject. One thing that you have in there that's not in on-premise is script variables. So this lets you kind of store encrypted data. So let's say I have like SQL password, for example, in there, as I'm trying to create a connection with a SQL server. I could put in the password in there and it'd be locked to the admins that have access to it. So you could then refer back to that variable name inside of your scripts, any scripts on the instance, and it'll know automatically you're looking for that value. So you can now store username passwords inside of script variables like that. It was something that we know those people were asking for, but so we added it in here. You have scripted fields on there, which means, you know, scripted fields are kind of your classic, when whatever is inside of this field, you can create URLs in there. You could automatically generate, I don't know, dates, numbers, whatever you're looking to get, right? So one of the examples you'll see with scripted fields is when you have incident management issues where you maybe want to add new logic to your incidents. So you have priority-based stuff, you have maybe impact-based stuff, and that gives you a level that you want to set automatically. So you'll have a scripted field for that. This is kind of what it's used for. The scheduled jobs and escalation services, these ones are a little bit different. So this will basically, skip that. So basically modify an issue after a certain amount of time has passed and specify the issue or a JQL to grab all issues. And the scheduled jobs is also something that runs periodically. So usually you'll have something, let's say a monthly report you want to pull out. You have a JQL, or you have, let's say you have users that need to be aware of any issues that have a specific components that haven't been updated every 2 weeks. So you could run a scheduled job if you wanted to send an email automatically, like a custom email, for example. You could do that with a scheduled job. And then you have your listeners, which is your classic, when an event happens, do this. Built-in scripts is all the scripts that we have built for you. So you can see that you don't have a lot inside of Scriptrunner for Jira Cloud, but you can bulk fix stuff in there. And of course, the script console that I always talk about because I love it for debugging. The last thing I'll talk about, and I'll kind of go over it really quickly, is Autoblocks. Autoblocks is our new solution for connecting things to things. It started as we were thinking of a lot of people that are doing migrations right now, and they need to connect on-premise instances to cloud instances to maybe look at differences. So let's say in workflow IDs or custom field IDs and stuff like that. And it kind of grew into something a little bit bigger that I just want to talk about. I know someone said, talked about ServiceNow. I can't remember who it was that talked about ServiceNow. But basically what this is we create, let me go back out of that. So this is Autoblocks. This is a tool that you can go on autoblocks.com and look at it. You build connections. So you create a connection to a tool that has an API. So it could be ServiceNow, could be Slack, could be ZephyrScale for Jira Cloud. It could be Jira On-Prem, Jira Cloud, Google Calendar, whatever it is. Once you've built that connection, they'll appear here as connections that you can use. And when you go into your workspace, you can start connecting these things together. So whatever it is in there that you have, you can now ask for it to be connected. So if I go to my create Jira on-premise issue, I have ServiceNow here as a connection. I added the module to. So this is a connection to a specific ServiceNow instance. I have a specific Jira service. I could throw in, let's say I wanted to also connect to a Jira Cloud platform. So I can throw that in. So you always have to have the module, which is basically your connection. I can select whichever cloud instance I have. Say, I'll call it JP Cloud. Once I've built these connections, what I can do is I can go into my code. These are manual triggers, but we also have listeners. So they listen for events that happen. I can go into my code and I can start referencing all these different services. So I can import Jira Cloud from connections. And then, that's my Mac for you. It does things. But what's awesome is I can then start coding using all these different connections. So it's very much built like Scriptrunner. So you go in, you do your connections and you code. But we have a full-fledged like IDE where you can like issue. So there's autocomplete. So if we just like get issue, you open, you have like all the documentation and stuff. So if your company right now is looking to do a lot of integrations with cloud systems, so anything that has a REST API, of course, but so it could also be on-premise, but mostly cloud, you can use Autoblocks to kind of connect all these things together and generate or create code that will link them. So for ServiceNow, for example, whenever something happens in ServiceNow, you specify the event, look if there's a link to a Jira issue, if there's a link, update to Jira issue, vice versa. If something happens in Jira, if there's a link to a ServiceNow issue, update the ServiceNow case or whatever you want to call it. I use issue all the time, but could be tickets. You can do that as well. So I just wanted to briefly go over that because I know it's not super well known, but it's out there. It's free to use if you want to just try it and have fun with it. Autoblocks is out there and available. So that's kind of all the automation stuff in the cloud that we have. I know I talked through a lot of things quickly. I have about 8 minutes left. If you guys have any questions or if you want to comment on background or anything really, or ask about Canada Day and what I use to celebrate, which is not much, or if I'm moving today, which I'm not, thank God. Yeah, I'm open to any questions.